Hey guys, do you remember that video I put out like 5 years ago asking for your questions for Ask Chrono 2? Well, this time, for real, we are going to actually answer those questions. There's been more than enough time for a lot of good ones to come in, and I do have a fairly lengthy list of good questions, so this should be pretty fun. But it's probably also going to take quite a while, so let's get started, shall we? Are you going to do a run of Silent Hill 3 and 4? I would like to revisit those games. For me, though, Silent Hill 2 has always been the best, at least in my opinion. I know a ton of people say 3, and I do like 3. I played through it, I think, twice. I remember the first time I played through it, I was on the last boss, and I ran out of bullets completely. And I think I had the sword, the katana. So I was like, well, let's just try this. So I cut up the boss a few times and won, and I thought that was pretty awesome. As for 4, I've only completed that once, and I said before I did start a playthrough that. I'm not sure why I stopped. Maybe I just wasn't feeling it. That's happened a couple of times, I guess. I know I was doing God of War, the first one, and probably got like an hour or so into it. I was just like, not really feeling this one. So I just kind of stopped it. I don't know about Silent Hill 4 though. I seem to remember having some witty lines in there. Out of the two though, I think it would be more likely for me to go back to 4. That game kind of turns into like a, like just a giant escort mission throughout the second half of the game, doesn't it? Because I remember whatever her name was, she got really fucked up when she was with me. Like the more damage she takes, like the more these black leech things start like swarming all over her body or something like that. Funny thing is though, like I don't think she can actually die. So I was like, well, if she's still alive, guess I'm not doing too bad. But it turns out, I don't know. It might spoil something, so I'll keep it vague. Um, Things can go bad for her at the end of the game, and depending, I just want to talk about it, but nah, I'll keep it vague. The more damage she's taken, the quicker things can go bad for her. So it's in your best interest to keep her safe, which I seem to remember being really difficult. So I would like to take another stab at that game, try to do better with the ladies this time around. But yeah, I do remember that being slightly annoying because it's like, I think you have to go back through pretty much every area that you've been in, all the while protecting this chick. And in a Silent Hill game, that's not exactly the funnest thing to do. Because there wasn't really anything like that in the old Resident Evils, and probably for a good reason. So yeah, 3, possibly. I don't actually have 3 anymore. I do have 4, which is another big advantage that it has. And I was actually talking about doing a playthrough of 4, like, I don't know, I would say a while back, but it's been quite a while now, so probably not 3, but probably 4. What do you think of Silent Hill Downpour and Dead Rising off the record? Whenever I think about Silent Hill Downpour, I just think back to that E3 conference. I think they called it the Silent Hill Stare, where that guy was staring at the guy talking and just like staring at the back of his neck, all creepy like. Which is probably the creepiest thing related to Silent Hill Downpour. That game was okay, I guess. It had some problems though. I think there's only like 3 or 4 different enemy types, which is pretty lame. And there was a puzzle in there that I had no idea how to solve. So I just kept pushing the buttons around until it worked. So if and when I do a playthrough of that, I'm probably going to deploy the same tactic. But as for the game itself, it's alright. I appreciate that Silent Hill is staying Silent Hill, because Resident Evil is obviously something very different now. I still haven't played Resident Evil 6, and that's kinda depressing, because I do consider myself a big fan of those games. At least the old ones. 4 was good, 5 was just, more co-op fun than anything. And 90% action already. And I haven't heard very promising things about 6, especially as far as the story goes. But anyway, Silent Hill Downpour, it's an interesting game, and it probably has my favorite of the goofy endings. Each Silent Hill has this UFO ending, they call it. I wouldn't say Downpour had a UFO ending, but it does have a pretty good thing involving Pyramid Head and Birthday Cake. Dead Rising Off the Record, I actually played that last year sometime, middle of last year I think. Basically it's just Dead Rising 2 except you're playing as Frank West again instead of Chuck Green. And you actually fight Chuck Green in the game. I guess in the Dead Rising world of Off the Record, Chuck's daughter died and then he goes crazy and just becomes another psychopath boss. It's pretty much the same game, more or less. I don't remember that many story differences. I know there is a additional, like, amusement park area in Off the Record, and that has its own Metal Gear-esque final boss, which was, I don't know, it's goofy. The boss was kind of annoying if I remember right. I would say though, if you haven't played Dead Rising 2, Off the Record is probably the version to get. I mean, I don't mind Chuck Green. A lot of people hated him for whatever reason. I don't think Frank West is that awesome of a character, but to each their own. But Dead Rising Off the Record just has a bunch more content in the game. Like, there's this whole separate challenge mode. I didn't get too far into it, but it's basically just run around and there's these different medals you can pick up, and that starts different challenges around the world. And it's basically just like kill a certain number of zombies in a limited amount of time, or get a certain number of points or something like that. It's pretty fun. I didn't delve into it too deeply, but it is there for people that want more Dead Rising. Hey Chrono, I would love to start LPs. Any tips? Well, it is quite a bit harder nowadays because pretty much everyone is doing it. Back when I started, it wasn't so widespread. You never really heard about it, like game reviewers mentioning Let's Players or anything like that. Nowadays, it's, very, very rampant. Any tips I would give, I would say just try to do your own thing. Don't go into this, like, wanting to explode immediately. I've always just tried to have fun doing this, and that's how I think I enjoy it the most. Whenever I force myself to play something I don't want to, or just hearing people say they're not going to play anything unless it's the newest, greatest game because they want the views, that just seems kind of gross to me. I mean, I've always just kind of played what I felt like, and it's worked for me, so just be yourself, have fun. But I guess if you're struggling for views, playing newer games doesn't hurt. But even then, I mean, there's already a ton of people doing day one playthroughs of games, which I also think is kind of gross. It's a crowded market now, so I know it is hard to stand out. I'm still kind of surprised that I have an audience, to be honest, but I appreciate it. It's cool. Yeah, sorry I can't really give you any more greater tips than that. I know some people mess with making shows instead of playlists, which I might look into. And there's other secrets, I guess you can do, like Facebook promotion or other stuff like that. I've not really ever messed with that too much though, so I can't say too much about it. Is it hard to make walkthroughs sometimes? Depends on the situations, I guess. Used to be I could only record like late at night because it would be too noisy during the day. So that kind of sucked because if I wanted to record during the day, I'd have to wait till later tonight to do it. But then by the time that night rolled around, I'd be like, I'm not really in the mood to record right now. That's another thing, another tip I would give, I guess. At least for me, If I don't really feel up to it, then I just don't record because I don't want to be not feeling it, just dull and boring as I go through my videos. That doesn't sound like good times for anyone involved. When I can't record whenever I want, then that becomes a hassle, unless I just work myself up for it. Another time walkthroughs can be difficult is if I have unreliable recording software. I've mentioned that before with ChronoGear. Fraps, for whatever reason, would just dip in frame rate, so it would just slow down almost to a halt when I was recording, so I'd have to stop it and then restart it and keep going again. And that became very tedious and just kind of drained the motivation out of all of it. So in that sense, that did make walkthroughs difficult. And sometimes it's just the game itself. Like with long RPGs or a game I'm not especially loving anymore. I was talking to Vash about my playthrough of Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, which looking back, I'm kind of questioning why I even did that game. I think I was like, hey, new game, so I'll play through it, why not? But that game lasts a long time, so that playthrough took quite a while. So with games like that, you see how much of the game you have left, and it's just like, oh man. I don't know, sometimes that makes it difficult.